On Sunday, Switzerland rejected a proposal to introduce a 50% federal inheritance tax on the super rich, targeting estates and gifts worth over 50 million Swiss francs, or 53.3 million euros. The proposal, which was brought forward by the left-wing Young Socialists but was opposed by Switzerland's broad coalition government, was ultimately rejected by 78% of voters, making it the party's third failed attempt in a decade to introduce a wealth tax in Switzerland. So in this video, we'll explain the recent referendum and why Switzerland just rejected a wealth tax again. Never miss an episode and always feel in the loop by subscribing and ringing the bell. Let's start by explaining the political and economic background to the referendum. Switzerland uses a form of direct democracy, a system where people can vote directly on policy initiatives themselves, rather than leaving it to parliamentary representatives, where any Swiss citizen can challenge a law, put forward a constitutional amendment, or call a referendum, provided it gets enough signatures. So in March 2024, the Young Socialists of Switzerland, an independent organisation affiliated with the centre-left Swiss Social Democratic Party, submitted a federal popular initiative, officially called the For a Social Climate Policy, Fairly Financed Through Taxation, Initiative for a Future. This called for a 50% federal inheritance and gift tax on all estates and transfers over 50 million Swiss francs, and was intended to raise money for policies tackling the climate crisis, while, quote, simultaneously combating extreme wealth inequality. The proposal gained around 110,000 signatures, giving it enough support for a national vote held via a referendum, after both the lower and upper houses of parliament voted against it. For context, this was actually JUSO's third attempt at introducing a wealth tax in Switzerland. In 2015, their proposal to introduce a 20% inheritance tax on estates over 2 million Swiss francs or 2.1 million euros was rejected by 71% of voters. And in 2021, their so-called 99% initiative, which proposed taxing capital gains above a certain threshold at 150%, was rejected by 65% of voters. Despite these setbacks, the 2025 inheritance tax proposal went even further than the 2015 one, which included some exemptions for family businesses. There were no such exemptions in the recent proposal, and it even had to be watered down before it was voted on. Originally, JUSO's recent initiative included measures for retroactive application, meaning it wouldn't just apply to future inheritances and gifts, but also to transfers that had already taken place. But following heavy criticism from business groups and tax lawyers, the retroactive provisions were scrapped. Anyway, in arguing their case for higher taxes on assets, JUSO cite Switzerland's enormous wealth, with the group arguing that, quote, the ultra-rich inherit billions, we inherit crises. For context, according to UBS's 2025 Global Wealth Report, Switzerland is the richest country in the world by average net wealth, with an average wealth per adult of over $687,000. Switzerland also has the highest density of millionaires in the world, and when it comes to billionaires per capita, Switzerland ranks 6th globally, behind only Monaco, Liechtenstein, St. Kitts and Nevis, Cyprus and Singapore. Swiss voters are generally aware of this inequality. A large survey of 57,000 Swiss people in 2023 found that 80% of respondents thought the wealth gap was too large. But despite these concerns, voters have repeatedly been sceptical of using steep inheritance taxes or radical fiscal measures to address them, even when the most recent proposed wealth tax, which again only applies to people with assets over 50 million Swiss francs, would only have hit an estimated 2,500 people. Anyway, like previous attempts, Sunday's referendum didn't go well for JUSO, with their inheritance tax proposal rejected by an overwhelming majority of 78.3% of voters, with a turnout of 43%. Slightly surprisingly, this was a worse defeat than many analysts expected, and it was also a stronger rejection than the 2015 inheritance tax proposal, which was voted down by 71% of Swiss voters. So, why did it fail so badly, especially when the measures would only have hit 2,500 people? Well, there are broadly two interrelated reasons here. The first being voters' concerns about how it might harm the Swiss economy, and the second being widespread aversion to sweeping federal tax reform. The first and main reason was concerns over how the proposed wealth tax might harm the Swiss economy. During the campaign, much of the media commentary from business groups and economic stakeholders warned that a steep inheritance tax would make Switzerland less attractive for international capital and even risk capital flight. In other words, people moving their money out of Switzerland. The Swiss business community argued this could potentially damage Swiss competitiveness, harm small businesses, and actually reduce Switzerland's tax receipts if enough rich people left or didn't come in the first place. They also argued that the Swiss economy depends on its reputation as a stable, attractive hub for international capital. And if the Swiss electorate signalled they were becoming more enthusiastic about taxing the rich, this would undermine that reputation. Another element to this might be voters' economic self-interest. Between 2020 and 2024, average wealth in Switzerland, which is pushed up by the super-rich, actually fell slightly, while median wealth, i.e. the middle figure if you lined everyone up from the least to the most wealthy, ignoring outliers, grew by 14%. This suggests that the wealth of the super-rich has grown more slowly, or even declined in real terms in local currency in Switzerland, but has risen in the lower or middle brackets. This contrasts with Singapore, South Korea and Taiwan, where average wealth rose faster than median wealth between 2020 and 2024, and suggests that Swiss wealth gains have been concentrated among the moderately wealthy, rather than the super-rich. This might also have encouraged the Swiss electorate to reject the proposed 50% inheritance tax, because while it was intended to exclusively target the super-rich, many Swiss voters, including those in the lower and middle wealth brackets, might have been uncomfortable with the idea that there could be further steep taxes on wealth in future, which could impact them. The second reason that this proposal failed, though, was that it would have meant a clear break with Switzerland's traditionally decentralised tax system. At the moment, Switzerland's cantons have their own separate laws regarding inheritance and gift taxes, with the canton of Basel-Stadt, for example, already having an inheritance and gift tax rate of up to 49.5%. As such, the proposal to tax inheritance on the federal level was criticised for being a form of double taxation, and for potentially leading to inheritance tax rates of nearly 100% in some cantons. This is why the Swiss federal government opposed the initiative, because it risked undermining Switzerland's fiscal decentralisation and creating administrative complications. Moreover, it's often the case with referendums in Switzerland that voters simply follow the lead of the government, a federal council made up of 7 heads of state from different parties, both because it's generally viewed as competent and trustworthy, and because it provides analysis that Swiss voters rely on when making decisions about policy initiatives. As such, only 10% of citizen-proposed popular initiatives succeed in Switzerland, compared to a much higher share, 75%, of obligatory referendums that are backed by Parliament. Now, that's quite a lot of information we've thrown your way, and that's after we've simplified it down for you. So you can only imagine how overwhelming it is to sift through the hundreds of outlets reporting on it online to just find out what happened. Luckily for all of us, there's a website and app that collects all those articles and puts them all in one easy-to-access place. And that website is, you guessed it, Ground News. Not only does Ground News assemble all these articles, but it also offers a breakdown into bias distribution, factuality, and ownership of each individual source, giving you the opportunity to dive deep into the information that may have been hidden from you previously. For example, if we take this story on the Swiss wealth tax proposal, we can see that there are 134 sources currently reporting on it, with most of the coverage coming from the centre. If we use their handy bias comparison feature, we can see that the left frames it as a climate tax for the super rich, and the right celebrates the result as a clear rejection. We can also filter and sort every story by their factuality level, helping you to easily grasp the reliability of each outlet. Or even take a more extensive look at who owns each of these outlets, keeping you fully informed on who's trying to feed you information online. Even if you want to stay close to home and explore what's being said in your area, Ground News can break down all of your local news, and even shows you stories you might have missed, introducing you to their blind spot feature. Here you can discover everything that's being disproportionately reported by one side or the other, whether it's a mile from your house or on the other side of the world. That's just scratching the surface of what Ground News has to offer. So if you're interested, there's no better time to sign up, as we're partnering with them to offer 40% off their unlimited access Vantage plan. And just in time for the holiday season, you can even gift a subscription to a friend or family member for the same 40% discount. All you have to do is subscribe through the link in the description, go to grand.news/TLDR or scan the QR code on screen, and you'll be supporting an independent news platform working to make the media landscape more transparent.